Assalamu alaikum and good morning, everyone. Welcome back to English poetry at the Islamic University of Gaza. Today we move to a very interesting poet, critic, and a modernist. When we started this course, I asked you for your favorite definition of poetry, and most of you opted for the Wordsworthian definition, defining poetry as a spontaneous overflow of powerful emotions. And I warned that many people would stop here giving this definition, and this actually falls short because there is a second part, there's a significant part, actually 50% of what the definition is, which is recollected in tranquility. This recollection act of remembering and recalling memories is significant. We're going to see this in a bit. Before we talk about the features, which we, in a way or another, mentioned in the lectures on William Blake, let's see this canonical text. I'm sure you're already familiar with this. Some of you must have studied this before, but it's always good to see how different people do different things. In my way of studying poetry and literature in general, I like to focus on the structure, on the form, on how the poets say what they say, rather than what they actually say. Some critics would suggest that there are actually a handful of themes out there. All poetry, all literature, all writings can be summarized into a handful of issues. I'm happy, I'm sad, she likes me, she doesn't like me, life's good, life's bad. And that's why we have poets, Arab poets, who suggested almost 2,000 years ago that whatever they were doing was just repeating themselves and intertexting or borrowing or quoting other poets. And this is 2,000 years ago. ما أرانا نقول إلا معارا أو معادا من لفظنا مكرور. And Antara says, هل غادر الشعراء من متردمي, like opening his mu'allaqa, his long poem, saying that, what should I write about? Everything I want to speak about has already been spoken about by other poets. But he doesn't just stop there and give us that one line, the opening, because he knows he in a way the idea is being repeated, but how he is doing his poetry is totally different. That's why every poet is a different experience. Even by the same poet, you'll experience different things. I have, like when you study Tamim al-Baruti, you'll find that there are common features for his poetry, right? But once you get into each poem, it's a microcosm of its own world. One guy said to a critic, I want to write poetry. I have so many ideas. I want to write poetry. We do this sometimes. I want to write poetry. I have so many ideas. And the critic, being a critic, said, poetry, my friend, is not made with ideas, but with words. What words to choose, how to use the words, how to word the words, how to order the words, how to play with the words, how to use and recruit literary devices and metaphorical language, figures of speech. And that's why, again, I like Samuel Coleridge's definition probably more. He says, in a way, it sounds a stupid definition, but it's really deep. Poetry is the best words in the best order. Poetry is the best words in the best order, where he's focusing more on how the form and the language should say what they should say. Now, when we talk about William Wordsworth, we talk about one of the most, again, important poets of all times. We talk about the father or the founder or the co-founder of Romanticism. Along with Coleridge, they published what is known as the lyrical ballads around 1798, and the book in a short time sold out. There were no more copies because people, remember we said neoclassicism was already in decline and people were looking for something different, something new. Coleridge published only his Rhyme of Ancient Mariner, and Wordsworth published, like, I'm not sure how many poems, but a bunch of them. Now, After 2 years, they said like, okay, let's tell people what we're doing. Let's define poetry, define a poet, and tell them what kind of language, what kind of sensibility we're employing here. And Coleridge, probably you know this already, Coleridge was a drug addict. He was an opium addict. He was high all the time. Not climbing trees, but high. So he didn't participate in writing the introduction, which is now known as the preface to the lyrical ballads. It was written, I'm saying this because some people think that the preface is what Romanticism is. And this is, to a large extent, yes, if you consider Wordsworth everything in Romanticism, and this is wrong. And I know many students usually, I like feminism, I like post-colonialism, I like Romanticism. And then later on you realize that there are Romanticisms, feminisms, and post-colonialisms. Because when you study Coleridge, is going to be like, they share these common features, but they're totally different. Look at Shelley, for example. Percy Shelley is Lord Byron. Lord Byron hates Coleridge and William Wordsworth. He keeps making fun of them all the time, mocking them. This is the second generation. William Wordsworth wrote the preface himself alone. This is good again and bad because we have now something like, unlike the metaphysicals, they didn't write anything to define their poetry, what they were doing, to tell people about their new sensibility. But again, it's bad because some people think that this is all what you need to know about Romanticism. This is also good because later on, Coleridge realized that, oh my God, I didn't participate in this. And he wrote his own book known as Biographia Literaria, or a literary biography. So it's good that we have two books by these two amazing poets and critics. This poem, some say, is the icon, the epitome of Romanticism. It contains almost every feature, as if he wrote this poem just to show people how to write poetry in terms of form, of language, of subject matter, of the new sensibility, of the the feelings and emotions and imagination, individuality, as opposed to everything that we had in the neoclassical era. Okay, so the poem is entitled with The Daffodils. The Daffodils. Probably let's read the poem together for the sake of time. Just one stanza each, please.
I wandered lonely as a cloud.
I wandered lonely.
I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over the
Can you say again and speak up?
I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats high or barrels on hills. When all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lakes, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze.
Thank you very much. One more, please.
Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretch in never-ending line along the margin of space. 10,000 I saw at a glance, tossing their heads and swiftly dance.
Thank you. Speak up.
The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought.
Thank you very much. One more, please.
For oft, when on my couch I lie,
On my couch.
on my couch I lie, in vacant or in lucid mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude, and in my heart with pleasure flows, and dances with the daffodils.
Very good. Very good reading. Okay, so I'll go into a journey through this poem and show you how I like to usually do things. But this is a poem that can be studied from different ideas. You can start with the features, looking for them, etc. But let's do a close reading between the words and the lines. Now, the title itself, Daffodils, or The Daffodils, suggests that this is a poem that is rooted, or at least inspired, by nature. the daffodils, rather than paradise lost, paradise regained, rather than any lofty subject matter, the fairy queen, essay on criticism, essay on man. That's the daffodils. Totally different from the neoclassicals who were writing before this. When we read the poem, we realize that this is a poem that is overwhelmed by nature and natural elements. It's not a poem that uses nature as some kind of decoration for the poem. Because some of you will say, okay, Shakespeare used natural elements. Marlowe used natural elements in his poetry. What difference does it make? The difference is actually existential, not just superficial. Because in this poem, in Wordsworth, nature is the poem. The poem is for nature. Nature inspires the poem. Nature, everything. Take nature from the poem and you don't have a poem. But for Shakespeare, probably for Marlowe, if you take nature, you take the decorations, because he's saying that, come live with me and be my love. I own everything around me. He's not showing the relationship between him and nature and how nature is impacting him, his psychology, his everything here. So nature here, this is about the impact of nature. The impact, and again, I don't like to talk about themes because sometimes they limit the meaning of the poem. But yeah, there is this thing about how nature is changing, is impacting him from one thing to the other. And then the second thing we are struck with the eye. I wandered lonely as a cloud. And actually not only I, we have lonely and we have the singularity of a cloud. I wandered lonely as a cloud. There's subjectivity here. There's individualism. For Romanticism, remember we said the neoclassical poetry was poetry of the collective, of everybody, for all. Not for all like in this sense where it talks, where it considers poetry a practice that is that can be done by everybody, by any ordinary man with just or woman with just some comprehensive sensibility. It means that you need to write poetry about significant and lofty issues that touch everybody. If your poem is about a daffodil, why should I care? A daffodil is not important to me. But God and Adam and Eve and the Queen, these things are important to everybody. And then he emphasizes this by saying, lonely and then a cloud. He's wandering not like clouds or birds, whatever, it's just one singularity. So when we say there's subjectivity here, there is individuality here, don't get this mixed up with not every I in a poem is individual I, because some of the I's could be collective I's. An I where the poet is assuming the role of the spokesperson for everybody, like the we, okay? Like where, for example, a poet speaks for all lovers, for all poets, for all people. But with William Wordsworth, and mostly the Romantics, but in particular William Wordsworth, the I here is actually the poet himself. Because for Romanticism, the poem is the poet. And the poet is the poem. They are interchangeable. That's why when you discuss Romanticism, remember we said poetry for them is self-expression. Yes. You experience something, you experience something that you experience yourself in a way or another. It doesn't have to be a direct experience. We can talk about this later on. And lonely, this is loneliness. We'll see at the end how he was not alone when he had this experience. But there's somebody he is totally eradicating and erasing from the poem. Is this anti-feminism? Is this self-centeredness? Or is this, and again, emphasis on individuality rather than society and community, which is a romantic feature? When he says as a cloud, as is, it's a simile, thank you. And a simile is a metaphor where you use as or like. And in general, similes are easier than metaphors. If he said, I wandered lonely or I floated lonely, we'll be asking, what does he mean? Why is he floating? What, is he a bird? Is he a duck? Is he what? Because the possibilities are open, but he just closes the door here by saying that I wandered lonely as a cloud. That's the end of it. And this is something some people might be interested in doing research on. How, for example, the Enneagram classicists were more into metaphors, make things complex sometimes, elaborate. That's why we have the conceit and the Elizabethan conceit. But here they go for the simple. We'll see this repeated again later on, as the stars. And then again, a cloud, not clouds, emphasizing the singularity of it. But why a cloud? Yeah? Why a cloud? Not a tree, a bird, a cat, or a drone, or a plane, or a kite, A kite, paper kite. What does it indicate possibly? What? Yeah.
Maybe because it's up in the sky and it's hard to reach.
Thank you very much. It's up in the sky. It's high up above everything. It has this bird's eye view that it can look at things below. It can see things from a comprehensive perspective. It's up above, that's one. And?
I think because it is moving slowly, so he's in a state when he is staring at everything and imagining everything, so he couldn't be like a...
But not necessarily, not all clouds move slowly, but that could be part of it. Sometimes they move slowly. So this deliberate movement could be a possible thing here. There is deliberation in the process. There could be another reason.
Maybe to show that it's like something that is delicate and soft and...
The delicacy of it, okay? The softness. I heard somebody say something here.
It's not heavy, it's very light, it's free, it walks.
Okay, it's also free. It has this kind of free will. It's not connected with anything. It just moves at free will. So there could be these reasons for a cloud, one cloud, free. But I love how when you examine our friend here, Wordsworth, we'll see the second poem in a bit. He likes to position himself. Remember I said, try to understand where the poet is, what he is or she is doing now at the moment the poem is being written, right? Is he asleep? Is he walking? Is he eating? Is he in a class? Is he what? In a train, traveling? The man here positions himself up above. We'll see the second poem, he does almost the same. He distances himself from things. That floats on high or vales and hills. Now, or is over, but over makes it and 2 syllables or 1 syllable. And again, look at nature. This is something. When all at once I saw a crowd. If you look at the first 2 lines, I think there is some kind of deliberation. Somebody said deliberate here. They're musical, but they are a little bit slow. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high or vales and hills. But this line goes even quicker. When all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. When all at once, look at this suddenness here. I saw a crowd. And the crowd refers to the bunch of daffodils he saw. He describes them as a crowd doing something called a personification. Because a crowd of people, we say. But if crowd is negative, a little bit negative, because crowd, we don't like crowds. You like, it's crowded there, I'm not going to go there. He quickly follows it with a host which is more welcoming and more inviting. When you go to some, if you are a guest, the guy taking care of you is the host. And when you are a guest, somebody's guest, you just stay there. You enjoy food. You enjoy drinks. You enjoy just relax, right? But it's the host that works hard to please you, to make you comfortable. I'm not sure what he's doing here, but is he suggesting that the closer you get, the more beautiful the scene becomes, the more involved you are, the more inviting and appealing it is, because it sounded like a crowd, and then they turn to be a host, which also means a group of golden daffodils. Now, the daffodils are golden. Why would you say golden if they are already there? So there could be some kind of significance for this color, shiny color. Some people would suggest that gold, they're precious, they're gold. Referring to the color, but referring to their significance. Where beneath the lake, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. This is, again, more for the personification. They are fluttering like birds, but also they are dancing like human beings. That's a beautiful opening to a poem. Very ecstatic, very appealing. I'm not sure if this is soothing to you, but he's inviting you to, in a way, to reconsider natural scenes, natural experiences. I hope you never see daffodils the same after this poem, or roses, or cats, or birds, or clouds. Now, I'm not sure what words you find difficult here. Fluttering, we already mentioned this before. Veil, valley. Fluttering, breeze, the sweet morning. What else? I don't think there are difficult words here. Even the words you're not familiar with, you still can guess. If you go to the rhyme scheme, please, thank you. Go. A, B, A. Are you sure? Are you sure? The letters are different. It's the sound that we care about and see. Perfect, or if you count, just to save you some time, if you count the syllables, each line has 8 syllables, making 4 feet, mostly iambic tetrameter. You'll find that this time we're not going to find many poems going for the 5 feet iambic pentameter. And then the second syllable goes for continuous as the stars that shine. Again, another simile. As the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way. They referring to? And look at this. This is, by the way, this is now a modifying phrase. The sentence is originally because they are continuous, they stretched, or they were continuous, they stretched. This one of them is reduced. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line. Grammatically, it's a never-ending line because line is one. So there is, again, because many people still say there's no such thing as spontaneous overflow of powerful emotions. There's always a conscious attempt, a deliberate attempt to write poetry. So if this is a poem with a perfect rhyme scheme and a perfect, same number of syllables, yes, great poets don't stop and count. They feel the beat. They feel the rhythm. But here, he's deleting the just to make it fit the 8 syllables, the 4 feet. Along the margin of a bay, 10,000 soy at once. Look at this. Again, grammatically, this is called fronting. Fronting, when you bring something in front, تقديم وتأخير in Arabic. It should be, I saw 10,000, subject verb, at a glance. But why is he doing this? Why is he starting with 10,000 and then delaying the subject? The doe at the eye.
Maybe because the scene is more important than the...
Say again?
Because the scene is more important than the person himself.
What kind of scene do we have here?
The daffodils.
Very good. So the daffodils, the scene, thank you, nature is more significant than he is. He's bringing nature before. And of course, how did he know that this is 10,000 daffodils?
Exaggeration.
Again, this is possible. It's possible that this is an exaggeration, but you could see in fields, you could see 10,000 roses or flowers in a particular natural scene.
In never-ending line, so he's exaggerating.
I'm sure you've seen many pictures online. You will find sometimes actually none. You look to the horizon, everywhere you'll be surrounded with But yeah, it could be. Could be he is just creating this perfect ecstatic image. 10,000 saw I at a glance, again extending the personification here, the metaphor, tossing their heads, like moving their heads in sprightly dance. They're still dancing. They're dancing here. They're dancing in the second syllable, in the second stanza. Dancing and dancing. They're happy. They inspire joy, inspire beauty. If you look at, again, same 8, 8, 8, 4 feet each. The rhyme scheme is, remember, you could continue with the letters, but my advice is when you begin a new stanza, go back to the alphabet to do this, please. A, B, A, B, C, and C. Also perfect rhyme. So it's the same, A, B, C, C, A, B, C, C. Creating this perfect world, natural element. And then, stanza 3, which I love very much. Now the waves, now look at how nature is contagious. You know, if you see a beautiful scene, it inspires beauty everywhere. The waves themselves were affected by the scene. Now, an inanimate thing here. The waves beside them danced. Even the wave. This is, again, remember, this is some kind of perception. The romantics believe that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. If you look for beauty, you will find beauty. This is a man going out who loves nature, who's looking for beauty. So definitely he's going to see it. He's going to look at the daffodils dancing, the trees dancing, the cloud dancing, the waves dancing. But if he's not in the mood, if he is dark, sad, if he has just been through a tough experience, he's going to be expressing it differently. And this is a romantic concept. Some people believe this is, we spoke about this with William Blake, how both read the Bible day and night. I read, you read black, while I read white. Different people give different impressions. That's why if it's raining, it's not raining now, unluckily for us. If you look at the rain, many people would think that everybody reacts the same to nature, to rain. We love rain, all of us. But for some of us who have had bad experiences during some rainy day, if you lost a loved one, if you have had this sad experience, rain is going to bring you all these feelings of sadness and pain rather than joy and happiness. So the waves were dancing, but they, again, the daffodils, outdid. They were more pleasant, more sparkling, happier than the waves. Outdid the sparkling waves in glee, in happiness, in pleasure. A poet could not but be gay. We'll talk about this in detail now. A poet could not but be gay in such jocund company. I gazed and gazed. He could have said, I gazed a lot. Right? We do this. I gazed a lot, and that's it. I gazed. This is how he reacts. He just stands there. Once was suggesting this beautiful thing, submissive to nature. You know? Like how the cloud is submissive to nature, to the wind blowing it here and there at free will, because it doesn't control it. He is exactly like this. He's just standing there, absorbing. You know, absorbing on a sponge, it absorbs water. He's trying to absorb this beauty, this never-ending beauty. I gazed and gazed. Look at how he's emphasizing feelings and emotions over thinking. But little thought. Not never, same thing, 2 syllables. But little thought. This is unlike the age of reason, the Augustan age, where thinking and logic are more important than feelings and emotions. I gazed, I just kept looking and looking. And I find this very beautiful, one of the most fascinating lines. Because nowadays, what we would be doing is just, again, take our mobile phones and just snap pictures just so you show off on social media. You care more about the picture than just enjoying the scene, submitting yourself to the scene. What wealth the show to me had brought. There's wealth here. This is not a businessman looking, wow, I'm going to make a lot of money, because he said gold before he. So we'll come back after a very, very short break. So I'm saying here that there's wealth here, but that's not the financial, materialistic wealth. This is the spiritual, natural kind of wealth that the romantics look forward to. Now, I find this very interesting as a stanza. I think this is the core of the whole poem. If we start with the rhyme scheme, can somebody help me with the rhyme scheme, please? A, B, A, C, D, D. Possible? Possible? But do you have another suggestion, somebody? Please?
Company is the same as glee.
Say again?
Company is
Okay, begin again.
A, B,
A, B, A, another B, but does company and glee rhyme? This is glee, and this is company. Long, short. Okay, so we go for an imperfect rhyme here, although I find this possible. And the fact that we differ here, that the first two stanzas were beautiful and perfect, we're fine with that. But all of a sudden there's something that doesn't add up, something that is imperfect, something that is making us disagree. The first two stanzas made all us nodding. But here, they, again, A, B, A. Nobody does this, the B small thing, but I like to do it to indicate an imperfect rhyme. And then another C, another C. If we just do the last one, and I'll come back to this, it's going to also to be A,
B,
B.
B, C.
Perfect? So the only stanza with an imperfection is stanza number 3. That's number 1. I was counting the syllables the other day, and I realized the only line that has an extra syllable was this one. Is it this one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, which one? Which one was that? Not this one. I think this one is perfect. Where's the eraser? This one is also 8 lines. I must have mixed this up with another one. Okay. The thing I noticed, if you look at this, is that the poet here, remember this is if this is a story, this is a first person narrator. I wondered, so I at once, I gazed and gazed. And then all of a sudden, he shifts. He shifts from I to he or she. A poet. A poet could not but be gay. He doesn't say, I was nothing but gay. Why didn't he say I was gay? I was happy. Definitely he didn't care about coming out and people saying he's gay, because it meant happy here. A poet could not but be gay. Poets should be happy, would be happy, can be nothing but happy when they come face to face with this fascinating scene here. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. And there is another indication here. I gazed and gazed, but little thought. The binary, the opposites. So I gazed, some would be thinking. I wandered lonely, I gazed, and some might just be happy. What wealth the show, he didn't care about even this kind of wealth. In other words, he didn't react instantly to the poem, to the scene here. And we'll talk about two types of imagination here. There is primary imagination and there is secondary imagination. The primary imagination is the instant reaction to beauty, to nature. You see something beautiful, you say, wow, and that's it. Or you take a picture and you just go on. But for the romantics, they like to absorb, to put it there in their heart and mind and everything. And later on, 2 years later, a day later, 1 month later, 2 months later, they would be reflecting on this. Recalling, that's why the second part of the definition is as important. Recollected in tranquility. But why would the poet shift from, why is he distancing himself from this experience? He's not saying, I was happy, right? He's saying a poet could not but be gay. Yeah, please?
Say all poets should be like
Thank you very much. This could suggest that not only Wordsworth, but also all poets. That's very good, that's possible. More. Please.
It's also maybe attack or talking about the previous poet, not the neoclassical maybe, or the poet that they before him.
How's that?
Because they maybe not appreciate the nature as he
But
does.
he's saying the poet is happy.
Could not be.
Please.
It might be an advice for other poets to be happy when they see this scene.
So this is for all poets. But why poets in particular? Why not everybody? Remember, the Romantics believe that this is, a poet is an ordinary man with, endowed with comprehensive sensibility.
I believe it's the condition to be a poet is to be happy in the nature. If you're not happy,
You're not a poet,
could be.
but poets don't only write about happiness,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, but the source of happiness, if it's not nature, you're not a poet.
Okay, yeah, like if nature doesn't inspire happiness and pleasure and beauty, you're not a poet. Or you're not a romantic poet, maybe.
Because again, in Wordsworth's definition of a poet as a person, he as a person who has more sensibility towards things and feelings, and he is capable of expressing those feelings, and that is what makes him different from other people. So when he says a poet, he means that a poet will see in this scene something much more than any normal or ordinary person would see.
And this would make him happy?
That would make him happy, and it would raise a lot of emotions in him.
Okay.
More than the scene would raise
Thank you very much. Want somebody here?
I think he's here distancing himself from this term of the poet, like he's putting himself above this word. He's considering himself more than just a poet, because any other poet would just see the scenery and be happy and react momentarily to it, but he sees himself something more than this. So he is in a way challenging the new classical people, poets.
What's wrong with this?
Because they
What's wrong with being happy?
It's a momentary act.
Okay,
Momentary reaction.
that's good. Connecting this with the
So you
primary
need
and
to-
secondary.
I don't want to say this, but you need maybe to suppress a little bit of your feelings to keep it for later when you think about this and have
Some kind of discipline. And that, the idea of spontaneous could be challenged here.
I think that just the releasing of the feelings that are agent inside of him isn't what makes him happy. So if it is a mental feeling, but what makes him happy is releasing the feelings inside of him.
Okay, so you agree there with Rahaf that the ability to express this, although not all people can express, at least they can feel it inside.
Because the poet always put feelings above logic and thinking. So
Not all poets, remember.
Romantic
poets.
So he put in the beautiful view, he decided to enjoy it and to express it, not to.
Thank you very much. Finally.
He's like trying to say that those who were before him, like the new classes, are not poets because like they suppress their feelings and they didn't express them. So like he's excluding them. He doesn't consider them poets.
But what's wrong with being happy? Isn't that good?
It is.
So
So like yeah, he's pro happiness, like a poet, but it's necessary for a poet to be happy. So those who don't express their feelings in such a way are not poets.
but clearly this poet is expressing himself or herself by being happy, by being gay.
To be only happy, not amazed.
Okay. Oh, so you're taking happiness as just, again, some kind of an instant, momentarily reaction to this. But for the romantics, a primary reaction. For the romantics, it's much more. Okay. Sorry?
So he's not awe-stricken by beauty?
He doesn't find this. I think I agree with those who suggested that this could include some kind of parody. Clearly, when he said, but little thought, again, he's putting himself as opposed to the other Augustan poets. I'm different from those people. He says, a poet, he's just suggesting an ordinary poet. This emphasizes here, couldn't, but it includes some negative, the negative of not here. And the distance, the shift from the I to he or she, the third person pronoun, suggests that the poet is distancing himself from this momentarily artificial reaction to nature. He's saying an Augustan poet, an ordinary poet, would just be happy and that's it. Bye-bye. But I am different. I am not an ordinary poet. I'm a romantic poet. Remember, the Romantics did not call themselves romantic poets. Later critics called them the Romantics or Romanticism. Because for him, it's much more than just being happy, than just the instant reaction to nature. It's about, remember, absorbing, living the experience, making it overwhelm you, submitting yourself to this, making it change your life radically altogether, as we're going to see in the second, in the last stanza, in stanza number 4. So this, again, stanza in particular, has this imperfection which creates tension, tells us, wait a minute, there's something there, and then we find the shift from I to he or she, and then the negative here indicating that there's something, a poet is telling us, calm down, wait a minute, pay attention, I'm doing something here. I'm raising a point that is deeper than probably other ideas. Some might read this and just keep going. But yeah, I agree that there is some kind of mockery. He's mocking previous poets who just react artificially, momentarily, instantly to nature. To those people, remember, nature is a decoration, but not this man who lives for nature, returns to nature. And then there is a shift. One important thing here is that the 3 stanzas, 1, 2, and 3, are basically in the past simple tense. When I ask you the question, where is the poet now? Probably he is lying on his couch. He's probably lying on his couch. He's not high, not as high as Coleridge, of course, as the cloud, not wandering, not gazing anymore. He's now reliving, replaying, recalling the experience. For oft, when on my, like often, right? But often is 2 syllables and oft is 1. When on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, whatever mood I am in, vacancy, pensiveness, in mood, they, referring again back to the daffodils, they flash upon the inward eye imagination, feelings, which is the bliss of solitude, solitary living, solitude, uzla or khulwa, being alone. And then what happens, it's like an argument, an essay, but not like John Donne, of course. And then my heart with pleasure fills. This is the proper reaction. It's not about just, I saw this beautiful field with daffodils today, and that's it. For this man, experiencing nature is life-changing experiences. You change, you have to change. And I said this at the beginning of this course. Hopefully, like you would, when you read texts, they must have impact on you. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with daffodils. I love how he, at the beginning, personified nature, and now he's objectifying himself. He's not uniting with nature, he's submitting himself to nature, he's allowing nature to control him. He's becoming part of nature, Mother Nature. A return to nature as a romantic feature. So the shift from the past simple tense to the present simple tense is a very interesting thing, because he is reliving. This is the secondary imagination we talk about. Later on, I'm not sure how long after the original experience, he's writing this, but he's using the present simple tense to express that this happens to him all the time. Every time he's in a vacant or pensive mood, what does he do? He recollects, he recalls, he remembers the experience. And every time he does so, this is again, remember the baby-like experience? Every time, experiencing every time, everything as if it's the first time you've ever seen this, reliving again and again and again. Every time being awe-struck by this sense of awe, sense of wonder. Everything is a miracle. Everything is a blessing. So the present continuous give it continuity, but also it indicates how the poet is reliving this experience now. One last thing I find interesting about this poem is the last couplet, if you want to say it's a couplet. I don't like to call it a couplet here, but okay. The last line, if you do the scansion, if you scan the meter here, it should be like this. And dances with the daffodils. Okay, so weak, strong, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, and then stressed. But this way, and you should be reading it and dances with the daffodils. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils, without stress on with. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. Which is okay, again. But I think this should be, going back, because with is a preposition. Remember, determiners, articles, prepositions, even auxiliaries are unstressed generally, because says, something you add to the syllable, to the word, to the main syllable. So unstressed, and then with unstressed, with two weak syllables here, a weak thought. And dances with the daffodils. But it should be read otherwise, with being stressed. And I find this beautiful. And again, deliberate. Where's the spontaneous overflow of powerful emotions, Mr. Wordsworth? In this sense, we emphasize the idea of withness with nature. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. Emphasizing this is not only again unity, but like you could say unity, I accept that. But this is nature is overwhelming. He's submitting himself to nature. He's emphasizing the idea of withness with nature, unity with nature, going back, a return to nature, to Mother Nature, like I said. So I could ask you a question in the exam. Why should with in the last line of the daffodils be stressed? Please don't say to emphasize. To emphasize is not the answer. That's why I'd be asking you this question. Why is he emphasizing with? So the emphasis here is to indicate this unity, this total submission to nature. What a beautiful poem. A critic says, many critics say, this man, Wordsworth, he is the poet who taught us how to remember. Because this is about remembering things. Now, you could see all the features of romanticism here. Maybe I forgot something. There's a return to nature, imagination, individuality, simplicity of language, anti-mainstream rejection of artistic conventions, and the form is the content. How in the third stanza, when he wanted to make a point, he just created this tension and conflict, memory, feelings, and emotions as opposed to reason. There are questions here. I'll be posting one of them online so we can continue the discussion. Probably mention some of them. Look at this. Number 5. In real life, by the way, it was Dorothy who had this entry, this experience in her diaries. She's totally not there. So I'm saying here that why is she, should be why is she erased from the poem? We can continue this discussion online. Is she erased because he hates her, because he's anti-feminist, because women are not good enough? Or is this more to do with the fact that this is a romantic poem and individuality? Think about this. But the last question is more important to me. It's not showing here. I have to show it to you because it's important. I love this question. The question says, I'm quoting somebody. It says, a trivial subject matter, okay? The question says, a trivial subject matter, as Anne Seward says, or thought, a daffodil to be, does not deserve the ecstatic diction of vacancy, pensive, and bliss. Like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is just a daffodil? A bunch of daffodils? You don't write this fascinating poem to react to just a bunch of daffodils. That's too much. You use this language and this beautiful reaction, what, to write about the Queen, about more significant issues. How would you react? How would you reply to this critic? Clearly she's trashing the romantics. Clearly she is, not happy with what the romantics are doing. This will be our question to discuss online. Would you agree that yes, this is trivial matter, like you're causing us a headache with this just daffodil? It's just a rose. Why are people reacting to the poem this way? Now, in the remaining time, we need to study this again, poem by William Wordsworth. I'm sorry I'm shifting quickly. Upon Westminster Bridge. If you know London, Westminster Bridge is a famous bridge in London, probably the most famous bridge in London, Westminster. Remember, this is a poet of nature. What on earth is he doing in London? If you reject London and the corruption and the society, why are you there? And again, let's examine where he positions himself in time and in place. Please read the poem very quickly.
Earth has nothing to show more fair. Dull would he be of soul who could pass by, a sight so touching in its majesty. This city now doth like a garment wear, the beauty of the morning, silent there, ships, towers, domes, theaters, and temples lie, open onto the field and to the sky, all bright and glittering in the smokeless air. Never did sun more beautifully steep. In his first splendor, valley, rock, or hill, ne'er saw I, never felt a calm so deep. The river glideth at his own sweet well. Dear God, the very houses seem asleep, and all that mighty heart is lying still.
Okay, beautiful reading. Thank you for this recitation. What do you notice the first thing before we talk about it? Please. 14 lines, so this is a sonnet. Oh, he's not only in London, he's also restricting himself. Where is the spontaneity, the spontaneous overflow? Remember I told you never believe critics and teachers? This is where you should listen to my advice, unless you don't want to listen to me as being a teacher. So this is a 14-line poem. It's a sonnet. Remember, a sonnet is very rigid.
It's like when Rome do as Romans do, so he's doing the same as London.
Thank you. Probably, putting himself in this cage. So it's a sonnet, thank you very much. 14 lines, thank you very much. And what about the rhyme scheme? Could somebody do it very quickly, the rhyme scheme? Please. A, B, B, A, leave her alone. Yeah? A, B, B, A, thank you. C, D, steep and deep. C, well, D, asleep, C, and then that's a Petrarchan sonnet, not a Shakespearean sonnet. He doesn't like Shakespeare, clearly. Clearly. Now, listen, the Romantics were called Romantics because Romanticism, the word romantic was used to describe the Middle Ages, the medieval times, when nature was unregulated, uncivilized, uncontrolled by man. When nature was, when life was, as simple as it was in a way. So he's leaving, jumping over all the poets, the giants, the neoclassicists, so those poets, and he's going back to the origin of things. So I think this is a deliberate, again, attempt to distance himself from Shakespeare.
I also think that it's a way of defying critics. Like, if you say I'm not a poet, I can write a sonnet just as well
I can,
as
it could be,
you,
yeah.
but I don't want to.
But also it says that the idea of spontaneity in poetry and writing is a myth. It's not always true. Sahya, you're right, you react instantly sometimes. I'm sure you started writing poetry, some of you. Sometimes you just get the inspiration and you write a poem, and it's a beautiful poem. But sometimes you go back to check, on language and diction and poetic language and everything. Some of you protested something here. Yeah, I agree that this is, okay, an imperfect rhyme. At the time when you started talking about the majesty here, by and majesty, there is an imperfect rhyme. Again, creating some kind of conflict. There is something that is not right with the city. He's not saying, okay, I'm sorry, nature is not as good as I thought, and this is the city of London is more significant and more important. What is the time in the poem? Morning? This is at dawn. There is, where did he say this?
The sun, never did sun more beautifully steep.
Okay. Before the sun, there's something about the sun there. Okay. The morning, this is the early morning hours. Where is the poet?
The sun also now.
Again, standing up above almost everything. High, but again, not as high as Coleridge. Sorry for the stupid pun.
So he's speaking about London before humans wake up.
Thank you very much. And this is the second question. What else do you notice about the poem? The poem is peopleless. There are no people. And because if there are people, the factories will be going on, and then the smoke and the corruption and the pollution and the society will be permeating, overwhelming. So the timing he chooses is also, so he sees beauty in the heart of the beast, the heart of London. He could see beauty. And remember, for this, I want you to compare this poem to a poem called London by William Blake. Fascinating, stark contrast between both of them. This man looks for beauty, only beauty, mostly beauty. He was an outsider. This is significant. He's not a Londoner himself. Blake was a Londoner. Blake sees corruption. He sees injustice. He sees blood. He sees poverty. He hears the voices of the downtrodden, the wretched of the earth. And he cares about them. He raises their voices. He gives them a voice and a face. But this man, and that's why many people describe William Wordsworth in particular as an escapist. As he's doing nothing. For many people, he is running away. But for others, the act of writing poetry itself is how bad corruption is. And for this, you will be surprised, by the way, when the second generation was writing, Shelley, Keats, and Byron, this man was still alive because he lived like 100 years. I'm not sure how old, but he was very old. But again, the second generation was taking control. And those people, Shelley, ye are many, they are few. He was clearly calling for revolution, for an actual revolution. And that's probably one reason why I love him the most, Shelley. He was anti-authoritarian, everything. So the poem here, Upon Westminster Bridge, shows how this, as a romantic poet, would choose a particular timing and a particular place, again, just to be himself. If you read the poem, I'll just do some commentary very quickly before we leave. Earth has nothing, again, this is starting with a stressed syllable. Earth has nothing, has not anything to show more fair. What? You just said the daffodils are the most beautiful thing. Dull would he be of soul who could pass by a sight so touching in its majesty. You'd be dull if you don't react to the beauty here. The city now doth. I love him using the word, the Old English, Middle English doth, rather than does. Because again, he's taking London 300 years before, 200 years before the Industrial Revolution and the factories and the corruption. Doth like a garment wear, and sadly this is only a garment, he knows this. It's only something the country will shed out, will take off in minutes or in an hour or so. A garment like a dress. The beauty of the morning, silent, bare. The silence here, the lack of people, the fact that there are no people, and bare. Ships, towers, domes, theaters, temples, lie. And I think there could be a pun here. Lie, they're just lying asleep out there, but the scene lies. It's deceptive. Now it's beautiful and romantic. In an hour or so, it's going to be hell breaking loose. Open onto the fields and to the sky, how it's just one painting, one image, all bright and glittering in the smokeless air. And I think this is where I mix things up. This is, every line is 10 syllables. It's basic iambic pentameter, but he does experiment more. He's just not as symmetric as others. This is the only line that has an extra syllable, unless you want to delete the schwa here, glittering. If you go for glittering, it's 10. If you go for glittering, it's just 11. All bright and glittering in the smokeless air. Look at this, smokeless, peopleless. What else does he go for less? How many lisses do we have? 2 or more? Smokeless, just one. So glittering in the smokeless air, never did sun. It should be the sun, because just one sun, right? Or is he considering him son of nature, son of this? But he doesn't go for the sun, he's going to break. See my point here? Grammatically, it should be the sun, which is going to add an extra syllable. But why did you add an extra syllable here? I didn't want to add one here, because there is a message he's sending here. If you dig deeper, you'll find it. Possible, but I'm not sure whether, because sometimes you have different texts. I tried to look for the original text. I couldn't find one, just to see whether this is glittering or glittering, right? And yeah, you look at text. If this is the original text, this is how he wrote it. Why is this capitalized, but not this? Or is this where society and civilization control, overwhelm, and subdue nature, which is not good? Never did sun more beautifully steep in his first, remember, his refers to the sun, his first splendor, valley, rock, or hill, ne'er saw I. Again, not never, 2 syllables. Ne'er saw I. Again, the fronting here. I never saw. I never saw. Never felt. There's a lot of negativity. We'll see this in a bit. A calm so deep. A calm, the beauty, the silence. The river glideth. He goes again for, not glides, going for Old English because he's situating himself in a different place. Remember, this is the relativity of time and issues of time and shapes of time Dr. Ayman mentioned before. You could use this as an example. The river glideth at his own sweet will. Dear God. I don't think this is a religious dear God. Some people will take it as a religious thing. It's just, dear God, the very houses seem asleep. This is another personification. People are asleep. Everything is asleep. And all that mighty heart is lying still. The mighty heart, London. Is he just referring to London as a whole? Or the factories or the machines? Remember, this is momentarily. It's going to change. I find the imperfect rhyme, the extra syllable, and thank you, somebody said, the repetition of the never, never, and the not. Things that create tension, that tell us that this is not going to last forever. Because it's only, and he admits this, he's not deceiving us or himself. This is a garment. It's just a gown you put on at night, and soon it will be taken off, and a garment of corruption, sins, pollution, smoke, smog will overwhelm, will take over. Such a beautiful poem. One of the most, again, interesting poems of all times. So, but again, he's not going for Shakespeare, he's jumping over Shakespeare. That's the term, he's frog leaping, or, it's going back to
I think that word
Petrarch.
garment where it goes entirely with the whole time idea of lie and lying.
The garment, possibly, it's momentarily. It's now this beautiful and silent and bare, but in a moment it's going to be different. More, please.
Dr. Can we say that Wordsworth here sees the beauty in London, even if there's corruption and
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But look at what timing he chooses, what place he places himself in. That's a romantic concept. If you look at these questions, there are very interesting things to look into this poem. I'll stop here. If you have a question, please stay behind.